Yo, what's up boys and girls, Swolelax here, and I'm back at it again with another video. It's time something different. Today, let's talk about the new Xtra hero that was announced for Dark Neostorm, Xtra HERO Crossguy. It'll probably get changed later, don't get me wrong, but still, it's super dumb. Now, Xtra HERO Crossguy is the newest wave of support that was announced for Dark Neostorm, along with a couple other cards for Destiny heroes. I already reviewed Fusion Destiny and how I think it's not going to be that good for the hero archetype going forward, or even going to be competitively viable. If you guys want to see that and want to check out my opinions, my thoughts, and my review of that card, you guys can check the links in the description. But without further ado, let's go ahead and just talk about Xtra HERO Crossguy. Now, first and foremost, let's go ahead and break this down. I firmly believe so closely that Xtra HERO Crossguy is the almost perfect support for heroes going forward into the new Link era. It is so close to being just right for the deck that it hurts. Now, on one hand, I'm proud that Konami took so long finally to release a Link monster that was good enough for the hero archetype, but on the other hand, this card's restriction does hold it back pretty nicely from being a good card inside of the hero deck. We'll touch on that second part in just a little bit, but what do I mean by the fact that this card is so good? Well, Konami released two Xtra heroes earlier this year in the form of Wonder Driver and Dread Decimator. I made it pretty vocal in the past my thoughts on Wonder Driver and how I think it's not necessarily the best thing for heroes, especially due to its Link arrows and its effect being that you can only set cards face down, and where it has seen play and experimentation inside of certain combos, overall it is a pretty bad Link monster. And then there's Dread Decimator, which is just... Don't get me wrong, I think the design is super cool, I think the Link arrows are incredibly helpful, but honestly, just like Cyber End Dragon, I firmly believe that Dread Decimator needs its own video addressing how it's essentially, how do you put it? Terrible. Jokes aside, I'm glad we're getting new support for heroes, but Dread Decimator needs to go in favor of something like Wonder Driver or something like Crossguy. But back to the new support. So to firmly understand why Crossguy is almost the perfect support for heroes, let's go ahead and read its card effects so we can better understand how it will affect heroes going forward. Xtra HERO Crossguy is a Dark Link 2 Warrior Link effect monster that requires 2 warrior monsters. This card reads, if this card is Link summoned, you can target 1 Destiny Hero monster in your graveyard. Special summon it. You contribute 1 Destiny Hero monster and add 1 hero monster from your deck to your hand with a different name. You can only use each effective Xtra HERO Crossguy once per turn. You cannot special summon monsters the turn you activate either of this card's effects except hero monsters. And it's got 2 down pointing arrows being left and right. So, first things first with this card's effects, let's go ahead and talk about why this card checks off almost all the boxes that heroes need. Number 1, this card has easy summoning conditions. Similar to Back to Wizzle 2 Tales of the Noble Knights, this card is 2 warrior monsters with 2 down pointing arrows. This is not only incredibly helpful for opening up the extra deck just a little more, but also it's really generic, so you can run it with stuff like warrior extenders, like Junk Forward, or even Marauding Captain. And while I consider these two to be the counterparts of each other, Back to Wizzle being an ultimately better card than Xtra HERO Crossguy, Crossguy has some pretty significant effects for its generic summoning conditions. This leads into the second reason why it's so good, and its effects are pretty great. First, you have the special summoning of a monster, which is always extremely helpful. Heroes have always struggled in the form of having to recur value from the graveyard. Now, yes, Destiny heroes do play off the graveyard quite a bit, but even they have trouble outside of cards like Malicious. So Crossguy enabling you to open up that resource just to gain more value for later plays is amazing. In addition to that, its secondary effect meaning that you contribute that Destiny hero monster you just brought back and then search a card to your hand. What's that song by Hall Notes called again? Oh yeah, that's right, You're Making My Dreams Come True. Amazing. And see, so far we're off to a good start. Obviously, I read the whole card's text, so you guys know what's coming next, and that is the unfortunate restriction. Let's take a quick breather real quick and talk about other legacy support inside of Yu-Gi-Oh! To understand why that kind of sucks. I know we're doing a lot of back and forth, but we'll get back around to it, I promise. For now, let's talk about Cyber Dragons just really quick. Cyber Dragons, I firmly believe, is one of the best legacy supports that we've gotten in a very long time. They got cards like Veer, Her, Cyber Emergency, even soon to be released cards like Noctur or Nachter. It's German. And then finally, we have cards like Cyber Dragon Zeger. All these cards help facilitate and cover up weaknesses inside the Cyber Dragon archetype. They help boost up its old deck objective, which is the OTK variance, and also help control the board with cards like Cyber Dragon Infinity, making access to those cards significantly easier. Zeger has amazing Link arrows for all of its utility, and its attack boosting effects just to help out those OTKs, like I said, is fantastic. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Cyber Dragons, and I absolutely love what Konami did in designing this new support. Not only did it help strengthen the cards that already existed inside of Cyber Dragons, but it also enabled the prime deck objective objective of Cyber Dragons to go through flawlessly. Now, I just said that twice. What exactly do I mean by prime deck objective? Now, those of you who are a fan of Triff Gaming might know this as the game plan. I know that's a spot-on imitation, but he's not wrong. Every single deck has a game plan. You want to stick to it. Some decks do their game plan better than others and have multiple game plans they can do, but generally try to stick to one or two things because they can do it relatively consistently. Even heroes have a game plan. Now, while it's changed over the years, it's pretty much functioned the exact same way with the introduction of Gumblar Dragon. And we'll get into the problems with Crossguy, trying to go into that in a second, but what I'm getting at in relation to legacy support is that the legacy support should fully support the deck objective of that deck. And if not, it could create a whole entire new one. Certain boss monsters are invented and created and designed to structure and support the deck that it's currently in. For example, even in Cyber Dragons, you have cards like Chimeratic Mega Fleet Dragon, which adds a whole new game plan in the form of control. But that also strengthens the core deck of Cyber Dragons, making cards like Core, Hers, and the original Cyber Dragon that much more valuable and that much more dangerous. But what can we learn from that? What can we learn from old legacy archetypes getting new support to make them significantly better and updating them for the modern game? Now, I firmly believe that there are three things that new support must check off, enable for them to be considered good support. Because after all, the name is legacy support. The first thing is that it has to strengthen the deck that it is based on. Whether that means creating a whole entire new strategy or reinforcing the core mechanics and ideas of the deck already placed forth, legacy support has to consider the deck and archetypes it's already based off of and play off of that. If it cannot help progress the deck further or strengthen something, add anything new, or even cover its weaknesses, then I would say that box isn't checked. Now, luckily for us, Xtra HERO Crossguy does check off that box in the form of covering the weaknesses of heroes in the form of special summoning. Now, the second thing that legacy support has to have is ease of use. If it's an extra deck monster, for example, that means it has to have an ease of access within the deck. And into this card, it's only 2 warrior monsters, so not even 2 warrior effect monsters, not just 2 hero monsters. This card is really stupidly generic. Now, despite me saying that, there's not necessarily a reason to play this card inside of another warrior deck besides link arrows, but inside of heroes, it is super easy, and I would say incredibly easy, to get this card out on the field. And while those 2 boxes are checked off, we have one more thing that would almost make this thing perfect. Xtra HERO Crossguy unfortunately has the giant restriction being that you cannot special summon any monsters except for hero monsters anytime you want to activate those 2 effects. While I understand this restriction, while I understand what I just said about legacy card support, being that they want you to build your strategy around straight heroes, the pool of heroes is pretty vast. Unfortunately, they're not that good. It's kind of strange because when you think about how cards use in general, it's gonna be one of those broad Yu-Gi-Oh topics. If a card has a deep card pool in terms of what it can use and what it supports, then chances are it's probably going to be pretty good. However, in a video that I will be talking about sometime soon, a lot of the hero cards unfortunately affect the battle phase more than anything else. I think Crossguy isn't necessarily saying, oh, you have to make sure the battle phase is really important. I think Crossguy is ultimately skipping over the fact that I think the main phase is where the heroes really shine. Now, this goes back all the way to the game plan and deck objective, which is number 3. Now, this card does create a new deck objective for the deck, being that is a strictly hero-based strategy. Now, unfortunately, that's not necessarily realistic. You have cards like Gumblar Dragon, Summon Sorceress, and even Back to Wizzle 2 Tales of the Noble Knights that you want to be using and to be creating an insane board. Now, unfortunately, with this card, you cannot do that. And it seems to me that this card is supposed to be a stepping stone for something like Dread Decimator, rather than something like Summon Sorceress and then eventually Gumblar Dragon. Now, you don't have to use their effects, but it's relatively difficult to use this card effectively without using its first effect. Like I said previously, I think Back to Wizzle 2 Tales of the Noble Knights will probably beat out this card in terms of viability. In Gumblar Heroes, whether you play them inside the more traditional variant, whether you play them inside the totally awesome variant, or you play them inside of the Phantom Knights, Warrior, Dark, Link, Turbo, blah, blah, blah variant, Back to Wizzle 2 Tales of the Noble Knights is a significantly better Link 2 monster to get you as a stepping stone to those better cards and those better boards. And unfortunately, Xtra HERO Crossguy does not. But where does that leave us ultimately? Well, I don't necessarily think this card is bad. In fact, I think this card is actually pretty dang good. It has a lot of great effects, has a lot of great utility, especially inside of heroes, and especially inside of strict heroes. But especially 2018, 2019, I don't necessarily think it's realistic to expect your players to play archetypes like that and only like that, especially when that's putting you at a disadvantage. I talk about this a lot when I'm going over deck building and deck theory, but I'm a pretty firm believer in card optimization. And if I was looking at Crossguy versus Izzle back to Wizzle, two Tails of the Noble Knights, then I'm going to pick Izzle back to Wizzle. Izzle back to Wizzle just allows you to have a lot more opportunities and a lot more generic use out of this card, not only in heroes, but in other archetypes you might want to use later. Whereas Crossguy pretty much can only be used inside of a straight hero deck. That means no Gumblar, no Summon Sorceress, no shenanigans, and unfortunately that's what holds this card back from being almost the perfect link monster for heroes. But I don't know, maybe that's just me. What do you guys think of it? What do you guys think of Elemental Hero? What do you guys think of Xtra HERO Crossguy? Do you guys like him? Do you guys hate him? Do you think they could have done better? And what do you think of its effects? Are you guys gonna try it? Are you guys gonna build decks around it? Let me know into the comment section down below. I'm excited to hear what you guys think. I'm really excited for Dark Neostorm. Not only for this card here, but I'm just in general happy that we're getting hero support in the first place. I'm gonna test out Draguy and see if he's any good. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think of it in the comment section down below. If you guys like the video, make sure to leave a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe. Got more videos coming in the pipeline, so stay tuned for that if you want to. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Peace out.